in 2008, a 2-bedroom apartment in Burbank, downtown Burbank,
Mm-hmm.
2 blocks from, you know, the thriving downtown Burbank vibe, you know, literally
Mm-hmm.
walk, super convenient. And we paid $1,600
In 2008?
2008 for a 2-bedroom.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It was an older building. It was a small building, you know, like I think it was maybe like 4 or 6 units per actual building. I feel like it was 2 units downstairs, 2 units upstairs, right? Per building. And then there was maybe like a super, you know, apartment in the back, right? So it was a very intimate, like I never saw my neighbors. I was only there for maybe like a year, less than a year. But here's the caveat. That apartment was actually a sublet. So that meant that when we found it in 2008, we didn't find it directly from the rental company. It was somebody else's apartment that was subletting it out. So it was a gentleman who used to live there, but he moved to San Francisco, but he didn't want to give his apartment up because he did, you know, he might be coming back and forth.
Right.
So I don't know what the going rate was in 2008. Like the $1,600 that we repaid may not have been the standard rate that building would have went for had it been on the market.
Mm.
You get my point? Like with the
Yeah.
So one of the things that so this was my first introduction to calculating, right? I didn't have to deal with, you know, filling out applications or anything like that. It was kind of like a subletting agreement. And it was $1,600 for
I moved to LA in 2012, and had never been here before, so I was just trying to find something that I felt like comfortable paying for. So like I was looking at like $800, which like they probably would laugh at me now to be in 2019, but like 2012 it was like, I don't know, you're gonna have like 20 roommates if you're trying to do that. Needless to say, I didn't find it, but I found one spot and then got enough roommates in there to the point where I was paying $800. I think because it was a 2-bedroom, so it was me, one in the other bedroom, and then one in the living room. So I think maybe the dude in the living room was paying a little less, but.
Oh, you even had somebody in the living room?
Right, yeah. It was 2-bedroom, but it was like 3 of us in there.
Oh, he was down for the couch.
We ain't had no couch, so he was down for the floor.
Okay.
Here we are in Van Nuys, California, which is about 15 miles outside of Los Angeles, California. In my old neighborhood where I lived exactly 1 year ago. And you can actually see my apartment building right here across the street with the black and white checkered exterior. When I lived here exactly 1 year ago, my rent for a studio, 500 square feet, was $12.95. Now, if you were to go on the website for the apartment complex, the studio unit, which I rented, is now starting at $1,600.
I was looking for an apartment after about 7 or 8 months because, you know, sometimes information don't work.
Right. It doesn't.
And I was, it was interesting because I didn't really go full hard on the apartment search because I just so happened to get an opportunity to one of my colleagues just move into like a guest house kind of situation where it's like one little bungalow house in the back of a, you know, lot, you know, with 3 houses. And I was paying $1,000 and that was, and that included utilities. And it was actually 1.5 bedrooms. So it was a full bedroom and it was this small closet bedroom that you could only fit like a twin. But I used it as like an office at one point, but eventually someone actually moved in there because I was helping a recent grad who was transitioning to LA. But the rent only increased. I was there for 6.5 years. 6.5 years I lived there. And The rent only increased $50 the whole time. But it was a private rental.
I stayed in that place for a year, and then, like we said, the place is not being rent controlled. So they wanted to jack up the rent. I want to say like $500, like either $300 or $500, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And I was like, for what? Like, all you did was paint the outside of the building. What do I care about the outside of the building paint? It annoys me about renovations because it's like everything you did, I could have done. You know what I mean? Like, I can't add more space to the apartment. I can't change the neighborhood. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all you did was throw up some paint. Like, I could have did that.
Yeah.
I could have got a new fridge. I could have got a new floor. That's all you did.
So this here is one of the studio units that is currently available. As you can see, of course, studios aren't super large. You would have to supply your own refrigerator here. Overall, the cabinetry is older, a little bit outdated. You can see that they did at least paint over and replace the hardware. Let's check out here. Here is the bathroom. Looks like we did a little bit of renovation on the tile and the shower surround. Slightly different in layout as you don't actually have a mirror over the sink, but you have one off to the side here. And then here is the walk-in closet, which is a pretty decent size. It's definitely severely scuffed up, and there seems to be some markings all along the walls, and even the shelving seems to be coming loose a little bit underneath. This here would be your view, which would be more a view of an alleyway here.
That was a co-op building in New York City, and we had 86 apartments, and so it was not a affordable housing reality, it was a co-op reality, which means that time ago a sponsor buys the entire complex, and the people in those complexes continue to pay the rent that was stabilized, so there's a rent stabilized apartments. And when they move out, because nobody would move out in New York City because you won't get a contract like that again. So it's usually when they die or they move away, the sponsor sells the apartment. So what that does is that the sponsors are waiting that people move out or die, and that's their business. And if not, these people continue to pay ridiculous rents. Like in that building, we had most of the rent stabilized that were still there, paid like $100 rent a month. So as far as this rent stabilized apartments are concerned that are still there, there's a huge social discrepancy between those that are still rent stabilized, and there are people that pay $100 or $150 rent a month, which is much less than any affordable housing in New York. And you have people that paid for the same apartment $1 million. So you really have like high middle class living next to the very lowest level of society.
In 2015, I had to move out of there, and I had to literally go on a for real hunt. And I was traveling anywhere from like Koreatown, Hollywood, downtown. I think I went to maybe a couple of places in the valley, but even mid-city, I was trying to be in a cool part of town because I've always stayed in the east, which is Burbank, Glendale area, And what I realized is, during my apartment search, where I was literally going and dealing with apartment renters, legitimately, I was in 2005. I was finding apartments between 1,300 to like 1,500 range, and let me tell you, it was always an issue of like no parking. You know, I had a
Yes.
car. So there'd be places where there was no parking, or it would just be really bad accommodations. Like, so it was no renovations. It was probably, I mean, maybe the buildings were like maybe from the 60s and 70s, maybe the 80s. Maybe they did renovations in the 80s, you know, in early 90s, but it was nothing that was really right. And then of course, you know, your down payments. You know, sometimes they want your first month's rent, you know, your last month's rent. You know what I mean? And then a security deposit on top of that. So, you know, that was something that I realized. And I found out from just talking to my friends during that process that, you know, the more cash you have, more cash wealthy you are, the easier it is for you to find more affordable housing. Because you can, you know, that's sometimes the requirements, you know, to get some of those affordable housing. During my apartment hunt in 2015 is, you know, I was going to, you know, it wasn't $1,000 anymore like I was paying. You know what I mean? I was going to be almost doubling my rent, and my income did not increase. So it was a little nervous. I mean, I started my journey in, I think, May, June, when I really started looking. I didn't find a place until August.
Wow.
Luckily, because my landlord situation, you know, I had to the end of the year to move because she wanted to take a place back and downsize. So she wanted to move back into the house. It was just scary because if I was in an emergency situation, if I moved like right then and there, if I was only literally given 30 days to find a place to live, like I would have had to compromise, you know, I would have had to compromise my safety. I would have to compromise so many things because it's just hard. And even when people are like looking to purchase, you know, affordable housing in both LA and New York, you know, the cost of living, like your salary range is no longer lower income.
Right.
Affordable housing now is for middle class. Where you have to make anywhere between $80,000 to $120,000 a year. And that's considered, you know, affordable housing bracket. Out of college nowadays, because when I came out of college in 2003, I was paying $550 a month in Baltimore for a one bedroom, and it was a standard size garden apartment, one bedroom, like with a full kitchen, you know, galley kitchen kind of vibe, a big room, dining room, full dining room, and a big ass bedroom. And I was paying $550 a month.
Out here, I've had a lot of people also trying to move out here, and they run into the same problem of like trying to find a place that they can afford and being new to the city and everything. And so I've like taken in a lot of people as they're transitioning to live out here. Like I always joke that I run a halfway house. But it's a lot of people that like kind of come in and they sleep on the couch and until they can figure it out and kind of get on their own feet.
But no.
It's as I said, it's an impossible city to live in. I mean, if you need to pay for a really ugly apartment, if it's in a more or less acceptable school district, and for a two-bedroom apartment, if you need to pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month, tell me who has this money? Because everything else is expensive as well. So you need to have at least $10,000 if you want to leave a decent